All right, here we go. Number one, the just shall live by faith. Knowing this was taken from Habakkuk, what is the purpose of Paul pulling part of a verse and sharing it with those who were in Rome?
Well, in Rome, if you remember, we spoke about it already, that there was a mixture of Jews and Gentiles, people that were pagans that came over to Judaism, and then from Judaism they heard the gospel. But the whole backbone of life itself is faith. It's never been works. People keep wanting to drag it into works. It's never you doing anything. But then what happens is people take it over into the arena of so much faith that what they do is that they focus on what they call grace, because faith isn't something that they can put their life around. And so Paul uses those two terms in the same sentence where he says, the just shall live by faith. So if I'm going to live by faith, I'm actually going to have my actions and my character line up with the very things which I believe. God has always desired our hearts. He is more interested in getting you and I to be able to embrace him from within than he ever is at our embracing him from without. Many people that you know, they can do the right things when they're around you for a little while. But sooner or later, the truth always comes out. Remember, time forces everything in an individual's life to reveal itself. You can find a person that will walk with the Lord for maybe a year, 2 years, maybe even 3 years, or maybe 5. But by the end of their lives, what you find is something that's completely different other than faith in Christ. And, then you have to be able to take that understanding to the scriptures to find out if an individual during the heat of their life and the heat of the day, whether or not that their faith could withstand that storm. And so the just shall live by faith was really the backdrop to all of life with God. Adam should have believed God by faith. He chose not to do so. He chose that he was going to embrace a relationship with the woman rather than embracing his relationship with God, because he thought he could do them both. And so when the Bible talks about that the just shall live by faith, what it is that a person who embraces what God has said from within, that's the relationship with mankind that God desires. And the book of Romans, actually, because it is really kind of it's a book that actually couples the Old Testament to the New Testament. It couples Judaism along with and to Christianity. That book needed to be set in order that it was to the Jew. He was telling them, look, what God is interested in is your faith. To the Gentile, he is telling them, don't you get over into works, but at the same time, you need to allow your belief to mold your character. And that's really the answer to the question.
So knowing that the scriptures don't contradict themselves with what James was saying about Abraham being justified by faith and Paul saying, or Abraham was justified by works, and Paul saying that Abraham was justified by faith, how do we balance that out in our own lives when it comes to works and by faith?
Well, works proceed from faith. Faith does not proceed from works. And that's one of the challenges that people have, is that they believe that just because a person does something, they actually believe something. Well, if that were really true, then I suppose that people like Oprah would be able to do whatever she's doing, because it looks as though that she's doing more works of faith than any Christian that I know. But that is really proof that works proceed from faith. Abraham believed God, And when Abraham came, or God came to Abraham and tested Abraham in Genesis 22, what happened was that God spoke and Abraham acted. And James was saying, wasn't Abraham justified by those works? He said, and by those works, wasn't his faith made complete? And the answer to that question is that faith is not complete until it has action that corresponds with it.